live. All right. Good morning, my bows and bow ties. Look, I don't have a lot of time. Go ahead. I don't have a whole lot of time. I have about less than 20 minutes. I just wanted to go on here and just make a couple of comments since I had time this morning. I have bus duty today. And instead of doing a video from the car, figured I'd come on while I'm still here. Let me say. So this James and Fuhad set of podcasters from the UK. Look, I believe people make mistakes all the time, but this is what I would say to everyone, or people who look like me. As I've gotten older, I have been more selective and more careful of who I lend my support behind, my subscription, etc. I say this because not everybody grows at the same rate. Number two, I think people in America who look like me forget that the Black experience here does not equate to the same as what is experienced in the UK, um, Canada, because even there's some differences, even like with the Canadians, right? Even though they're more closely aligned with us. But I think we make the assumption that everyone has the same experience that we have. In the United States, Black Americans are more, let me rephrase that. Americans, I would say collectively, are more in tune with race because this is a very race conscious country. Black Americans, I would say, are definitely even more in tune with it. We are very aware because we are forced to learn a lot through heuristics. Okay, and for those of you who are not familiar with heuristics, they're like these little rules of thumb. There's those things you learn through experiences along the way, right? So it is, I would say, easier for us to decode language and behaviors and that sort of thing. So for when people come from outside of the United States and they come here, I think those men that were the men that were on that Andrew Schultz podcast. See, I don't even follow those guys. Like I've seen before, I've seen a couple of ha jokes from them, but like up until the other day, I couldn't even remember their name. Like they would come across my feed on occasionally. I may listen for like about 10 or 15 seconds to a joke or something silly, and I moved on. But I feel like with them coming from the UK, now for those of you from the UK, if I'm wrong, let me know. I'm actually really open to hearing what your thoughts are. I feel like American culture, I'm butchering this, but I'm trying to make a point. In America, we're very almost brash in your face, like we're American, it is what it is. We're kind of like forced to be that way too, because we're separated by ocean to the left and to the right of us. We live in our own world, and we're like, this is what it is. You're going to judge us. It is what it is. So we also are more willing to call out certain things, and I feel like when you go over to the UK, it's and it's been a while since I've been to the UK, but it's almost like people want to be reserved and respectable, and I put earmarks around that. And so I feel like those men maybe are just not used to, it doesn't mean racism or anything doesn't exist over there, or micro and macro aggressions don't exist in the UK, but I don't know if they were prepared for the level of, oh, we're gonna bother you up with these and want to see how you feel about it, right? Like they may have had some feeling in their gut or something, but didn't know how to name it. Like, and probably was like, ha 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 ha, a little bit cowardice, right? When you come here, like we are so much more in tuned and trained with how to see and decode language. We see it all the time. It's felt all the time, especially a woman who looks like me. So for them to come over and sit on that clown's podcast, number one was like a big like, really? Number two, it's kind of like when you are presented with a situation, now you're like, like your ethics kick in. Now I want to pause here for a second. Everyone has a moral compass. I have a point to this. Everyone has a moral compass, right? There are those things that are taught to you. Religion will give you a set of mores. If you follow science or whatever, right? You have rules for how you're going to live. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not do all these things. But ethics are personal. Those are those things that you learn over a period of time. It's through a set of experiences, and it starts to challenge your mores. So I suspect those men came over, and it's not that they don't know it doesn't exist, but you got to also realize now this is where I'm going to make people from the UK really mad at me. I feel like oftentimes when I listen to people from the UK speak, sometimes I feel like there's still a little bit of a conquered mentality, right? Because the way racism in macro and microaggressions present, based off of what I have seen, I don't live over there. I haven't lived in Europe in a long time. I have never lived in the UK. I visited the UK. But the way it presents over there is different than how it presents here. And that's not to say that they're like, they can't see it. But I think because here we're so much more well versed and experienced in like, what was that? What did you just say? Right? I think they just, I don't know. That's the only thing I could think of. Also, I do think that they already have some uh, some anti-blackness, right? Because it was easy for them to hee-haw. It was easy for them to hee-haw sitting on those chairs in that interview with Andrew Schultz and taking shots at Black women. So I do think they also have some of that internalized anti-blackness. And I think people are going to think this is, oh, because they don't want to date Black women, whatever. Like, I don't even care. Like, I don't, I'm not checking for them. I don't know if people are. I don't know. I don't follow them like that. So, I mean, like up until a couple days ago, I didn't even know their names. It was like the two guys from the UK. Like I would see them, I think, on TikTok. Actually, I think it was TikTok. You get a couple of jokes and move on. I just think for them, I mean, for people probably think, oh, people are mad because they probably don't like. I'm like, no one cares about those dudes from the UK. Like, we're not even checking for people in the UK. Seriously. It was more along the lines of if you have a fan base that supports you, even if they weren't your fan base, why would you let someone take shots at people who look like your family members? So I would say for those who live here in the US, we're so used to seeing that type of thing, decoding that type of thing, understanding language and scenarios. And I'm not saying we get it right all the time either. We're presented with that. And so when I saw some of the clips, it was like immediate for at least for me, but for many of us who saw it, it's like, what the heck was that? Right? It's immediate. And then to watch their reaction, it was more like, okay, these guys are literally just buck dancing now. This is a comedic buck dance. Like they have sold their souls. Like it was kind of like, okay, I was already mentally checked out. I was like, all right, I put them in clown category. But then after I had an opportunity to reflect, because everybody's coming out with all the reactions, I was like, I'm not so sure that like they knew something wasn't right because it was raggedy. But I think for them, like, how do you maneuver in these spaces? I'm not so sure they're well versed on how to maneuver in such spaces, especially when you get that American brand of it, right? So I tell people all the time, like I'm a very proud American. I grew up here. It is what it is, but it doesn't mean I don't recognize the faults that we have here. And a lot of people, you can go ahead and sit over there. Yeah, I don't think anybody can see you. Sorry, I'm talking to my daughter. She's eating her breakfast, making sure she's not in the camera shot. Yeah, you're fine. So I recognize that we have issues here. All right. These guys that are, let me wind it back. When I first got on, I said we have to be careful about who we lend our support behind, that type of thing, right? And for me, It's going to sound xenophobic, and it's not that I'm anti-immigrant. I don't want to say immigrant. It's not that I'm anti people from the diaspora, because I'm actually very interested in people who are displaced or misplaced throughout the diaspora and from the continent. But I definitely feel the pushback. I feel like for whatever reasons, people want to take shots at us, people who were born here, who identify as Black American. And so for me, I'm very careful about who I lend my support behind or my cycles behind, because in my collection of experiences, most of the time it has been met with a lot of negativity, a lot of projection of what their thoughts are of Black Americans. And no, this isn't just something that's saw online. I want to make this clear. I've spoken with people, okay? And I'm talking about even as far back as my college days. Like dudes I didn't know. Like one dude just like, I'll never forget. I was in college. I was studying. It was time for me to go. I packed up my book bags. I was in the student union. I was on my way out, and there's this one guy. I want to say he was from Zimbabwe. I can't remember. I think he was from Zimbabwe. I was on my way out, and I didn't even know he was leaving. Nice guy. And I walked out of the student union. I pushed the door, and I vaguely remember somebody next to me. You're fine. You're fine. They can't see you. That's my son. That's my daughter's twin brother. And I was walking out of the student union. On the way out, he was to my right, and I didn't know he wanted to come up and hold the door like open for me. And hey, I'm live. I'm live. Okay. So long story short, he's like, "This is the problem with you American women." He's like, starts setting it up, and I'm like, "What's happening?" And by the way, he was a nice looking guy. He was big. He was built. I wasn't back then. I was tiny, and I'm like, "Whoa, what's up with this guy?" Like, um, but he just starts going off. I didn't even know. I was just trying to leave. I didn't know he was trying to leave. I didn't know he was next to me. The point I'm making was he lit up Black American women. He went off. I'm walking. He's still walking, and he is setting it up. And I'm like, have a good day. So I keep it moving. I've played tennis with people from, I can't remember where she's from. I don't want to identify names because to protect the innocent. Um, anyway, the point I'm making, from college up until now, the people I have met from various countries within from the continent have always said something incredibly negative and offensive. They made all these projections, and I'm like, well, then why are you here? So I'm very careful on who I support, because I know the kinds of thoughts and beliefs they have. So when the Tyler girl came out with her water song, cute song, right? Now, did I go download her song? No. Did I invest any real mental cycles into this girl? No. Because first of all, and I know you guys are going to be mad, Tyler thinks she's different from Black Americans, but the only way that she's getting the notoriety is doing exactly what Black um, female entertainers do. You ready? She's a singer or an artist. So you know what she did? She did the same thing that they all have to do. She has to get up on the stage and shake her hind parts and wear no clothes. She's not Billie Eilish, who could just get up there and sing. Ah! Like, no, she can't just get up there and sing. It's not like her voice is like this great voice. She's got a cute little voice. Make me sweat. Whatever. I don't even know all the words. And where I'm going with it is, I didn't invest a whole lot of mental cycles in Tyler. She's a cute girl, but she looks like every other cute girl in the industry. Like the way they source all these girls, they look the same. And she thought she was different. And she found out quickly that she wasn't. When I listen to like so many people from the UK talk about Black Americans, and I'm like, wait a second, you guys hate us so much, and yet you're cosplaying about Black people. You come over here and try to get these roles from Hollywood and everything like that, which I don't have an issue with them competing for roles. I mean, I really actually don't. But for a group of people who have so much to say, they want to cosplay Black people, Black Americans so much. I don't see anybody wanting to run over there and cosplaying Black British. Well, we can't mimic the accent anyway. But where I was going with all of this, I'm going to bring it back together. I think we have to be careful with and I would say Black women in particular, we always want to support people. We want to throw our support behind people blindly. And there's something to be said that's sweet about it, but it's also so it's like rooted in naivete, right? We have to be careful with that. Like, I wasn't even anti Tyler, right? Like, I just never got caught up. And she's proving from what I've seen and heard exactly some of the things I thought. These two guys, James and Fuhad, coming from the UK, they're proving everything I'm thinking. Like, like a lot of them have their issues with Black Americans. So for me, I'm like, I just take it with a grain of salt. Now, do I think all of these people are these like horrible people? No, not really. I mean, they're human like the rest of us. But I'm very careful with who I throw my energy and support behind, especially when it comes to people who look like me outside of here. Because I know at the end of the day, they have issue to take umbrage up with someone who looks like me. And I'm like, I didn't do anything with you. So these guys, like I said, the Fuhad and whatever his name, James, I just feel like they walked into a situation and they got their learning lesson. This was a really good learning lesson. They walked into a situation, and I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. They walked into a situation and they weren't well versed or experienced in America's brand of macroaggressions, racism, whatever like that. And I think they knew it for what it was, but I don't think they were thinking about it because they had their own anti-blackness, I'm guessing. But I think they just didn't have the experience. I don't think they were prepared for like, oh, welcome to America. So take that with a grain of salt. What did I even title this? I called this "More on James and Fuhad." That's probably a good title. I don't know. I'll probably change the title later on today, but that's just my take on it. If you notice, I did not bring up their content because or the Andrew Schultz interview, because I usually don't like to promote those things. I'll speak about it and then move on, but I don't like to bring up the video. You guys can go look it up yourself. Very rarely do I bring up other people's stuff like that, right? But you can go, I mean, seriously, stop. I just told you I'm live. Cut that off, please. Cut the flow down some. Thank you, sir. My son loves to do this. He waits until I go live and he wants to turn on everything. Bang, 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 open, slam, turn the water on high, this, that, and the other. He's like doing the most. Anyway, so that's just where I'm at with this talk. See, she's over there laughing. One of these days, maybe I'll let them get on camera, but I like to protect my family because they didn't ask for this. This is my channel, so I always make sure I protect their anonymity, not because it's some big secret, but because I like to keep a separation between you guys and my personal life. But anyway, those are my thoughts. I don't know. Maybe I got it wrong. I don't know. I don't want to make excuses for them, but I'm calling it the way I see it. I think that they got their welcome to America moment. And when you go against the very demographic who supports you, which is the Black woman demographic, and like I said, we sniffed that out quickly. Like I said, I don't even subscribe to these guys. I don't know much about them. I've only seen them come across my feed a few times. There's a couple of jokes or whatever. I got a couple of hee-haws, a couple of chuckles, and kept it moving. But that's just me. I don't lend a whole lot of support to a whole lot of people. They have to prove it, I guess. And if they don't want to prove it, that's fine with me. I don't care. They don't care. Look, I don't even promote my channel enough. I'm like the worst. I mean, I just do what I do and then I move on. But all right. So for those of you who are on and you're watching, if you haven't seen what I said earlier on this video, you're going to have to watch the replay. I'm going to disconnect shortly. It's 7:31 a.m. and my son is doing everything he can to try me this morning. So I need to get off of this and be a good parent and tie my shoes that I'm wearing and make sure that my lunch bag is correct. Have a good one.